Your Minnesota Timberwolves club gets it done again last night. Dateline Denver, Colorado. They basically blow the Nuggets out, 115-95. The benches get cleared. I think Denver did with about 5 or 6 minutes to go. And the Wolves are now 3-0 against Denver this season, have won 5 consecutive, going back, of course, to the playoffs last year and the rather memorable Game 7. And we start quickly because Mike Conley is on the phone. He is, of course, brought to you by Dynamic Drips. Become a healthier, more hydrated you. DynamicDrips.com. He joins us via the Connecticut Water Systems Hotline. Welcome back to the program. Thank you, as always, for the time. So how do you look at it, Mike? I mean, you guys are obviously playing better, and I want to try to cover all of that today. But this does start falling into the classification of, have you figured something out about Denver? Is there a built-in confidence that you have? Because you're not only beating them, you've kind of been dominating them. What do you see?
Honestly, I think it's, two teams that know each other really well. Obviously, we have, got a great scheme, great team for, a roster like Denver. We have the size and the defenders to make it a tougher night on a lot of those guys. And I think that's helped us kind of establish, who we are when we play those guys. And, we don't want to get too high or too low on, how many wins we've had against them. We
Sure.
know, they're a championship-level team, and they have championship pedigree. So, but we come in every game feeling confident in that we can win no matter where we're at.
Is this the best stretch of basketball for you individually this season?
I would think so. Honestly, I think we've kind of found a good rhythm, a good balance to what we do.
How about you, though? How about you individually? I'm talking about. We'll get to the team. Yeah, just in terms of where you're at. Yeah.
Me individually, yeah. No, me individually for sure. I'm probably the healthiest I've been all year.
Mm-hmm.
Probably playing with the most clarity. I've played with all year, just understanding, exactly, where I'm going to be aggressive, where I can help the team, and the role that I'm out there with.
It certainly looks like. So clarity, it's an interesting way that you put it. Does that mean you've got a better handle on where you fit in now than maybe you did, as all these new pieces have been, were added right before the season, and you've had people in and out via injury? What do you mean by clarity?
Well, I think there's a lot to that, but it's more so I'm a kind of guy that'll kind of defer to everybody else and try to let figure out the issues of our team as far as everybody else goes, and figure me out last. And it's kind of been that way, trying to figure out how to, get Julius going, how to get Jaden, how to get Ant, how to get Rudy involved, Dante, whoever it is. And in the meantime, you kind of lose sight of what you're good at and what you can be, a positive for the team at. So the last month or so has really just been, okay, I think as a team we've figured out each other and how we can best utilize each other. And now I can just focus on, all right, I'm going out there and I'm going to do this, and this that'll affect the game in a positive way and try to lead to more wins. So feeling real good and confident. Like I said, most of it is really healthy now and can, do things with confidence as opposed to, being a little bit hesitant with certain movements and not wanting to injure something further.
From the outside looking in, obviously this team looks different. It looks as if, I don't know how to explain it, that the ball, there's a flow, certainly offensively, there's a flow that we've not seen. It's almost like everybody has sort of freed themselves of whoever they were supposed to be and said, let's just make the right play. And that I assume the more that happens, and with the kind of results you're getting, the more reinforcing it is to do it. And I'm curious, do you think it's happened organically? Do you think it's verbalized, that you guys have sat down either collectively or with the coach and have gotten into these sorts of conversations? Because the flow, everything just seems easier right now, and it feels like more players are just trying to make the right play. Well, how do you get there?
Honestly, it starts off with, you try to reinforce it, coaches, players, film sessions. You just kind of make the point of what we need to do to make the easy play and make the right reads and how that, affects our team in winning these games. And then, you go through weeks and months where it just doesn't seem to click with everybody, doesn't click all the time, but maybe just half the time or a quarter of the time. And then one day you wake up and you have a game that maybe you do it 75, 80% of the time. You're like, hey, that was fun. Like, everybody kind of got involved. Everybody was moving the ball. Nobody cared who got the credit. It was a fun game. Then you stack another game on top of that, and then another one and another one, and all of a sudden you're starting to build this standard, build this thing where you don't want to be the guy, the odd man out, that's not making those plays, that's not making the right reads, that's not doing what it takes to make your team better. And we're at that point right now where guys are just completely bought into that side of the game, and it's making it fun for everybody.
Yeah, you mentioned there are some good comments you had. I saw this morning. You must have talked about this after the game. The gift you referred to as the gift earlier in the year with some of the injuries, myself included. Guys being in and out of the lineup gives other guys opportunities to have a bigger role. You look at Jaden and Nas; those guys are getting comfortable and confident while Julius was out. I want to talk about several of these players if I can individually, but I want to start with Julius because I felt like, I don't know if he picked up something. He talked about it, I think, that while he was out, one of the things he sort of tried to concentrate on when he came back was pace. It felt to me like he's saying, whatever play I'm going to make it pretty fast. And if I'm going to make it for teammates, I'm going to make it really fast. And he looks different to me. He's always obviously been a very good player, but I look at this team and I said, especially when you're not on the court, Mike, the idea of him sort of brandishing that power forward role because he can create, that, as effectively as he does, that's one of the greatest weapons he could bring to this. We know he can score. So what have you seen, and what do you think clicked in with him that feels different when you're out there on the court with him?
Well, I think it's, that perspective that you get when you're out a number of weeks. You get opportunity to see the team, see the good, the bad, things you can improve on. And I think for him, he has such a wide, range of skills and a skill set that not a lot of players have. So he can sit back and say, I'm going to change my game when I come back, and I'm going to, dribble handoff more, push the tempo more, or, just throw the ball ahead more, attack the rim more, whatever it is that he wants to adjust, he can do that. And that's the great part of Julius. He's able to identify what that is for him and for our team. And so far it's been just that. He's been kind of the engine. Like, when the ball touches his hands, you got four guys ready to shoot. You got four guys cutting and trying to make, their bodies move a little bit more offensively. You just got more movement as a whole. And he's been super important, in the transition of that. So just, very, very excited and very happy that, he's made that transition. And, all of us are benefiting from his sacrifices that he makes for our team. It
kind of feeds on itself, right? I assume, like you said, human nature being what it is, if you see a player who's moving the ball that way and creating, you're going to get to open spots. You're going to work harder to find those spots because you feel it's more likely that you're going to be rewarded.
For sure. And I was telling that on the bench the other day, man. I was like, man, I'm super, just happy that I'm playing with you, being able to read the game that you read, and you just make it a lot easier on us. Like, him being able to play with that pace, like, you see us running up and down that court super fast just because we might get the ball, and in the past, maybe you don't run as hard as you're like, oh, we're just, we're going to end up backing it out or doing a certain type of play or whatever. And now it's, hey, everybody run, go get a layup, go get an open three, just play free and flow into things. And as long as we keep our turnovers down, I mean, we really, really do have a great flow to things when we play that way.
Mike Conley joining us, thanks to our friends at dynamicdrips.com. Jaden is another player I wanted to talk to you about because and this goes back to what you were talking about, the blessing in disguise when certain players go out hurt, and then maybe the ones who are left have, they grow into different opportunities. Maybe they start thinking, well, actually, there's a little bit more I can do here or there. I don't have to settle for the corner three. And that's what strikes me about Jaden is it looks like he's not just in the corner waiting for that pass and staying there. He's sometimes slashing to the basket. He's sometimes moving other places. And all along with Jaden, even before you got here, I mean, the feeling, of course, was, well, if he can add an element offensively where he's a little bit more than always the fifth option, given what he can do defensively, that's another way this team can grow. How would you describe his evolving as an offensive player in terms of where he is now compared to maybe when you first got here?
I think he's really worked on his game a lot, and he's one of those players that over the last year or two just really put a lot in his bag to where when he did get an opportunity and he got the chance to show it, he's going to show the world that he can do all those things. And I think the injuries to our team and the responsibility that we now had to have given to him, he took that and ran with it. And it's been really good for us because he's a guy that can score at pretty much all three levels, and you want to utilize his size and athleticism. Don't not just keep him in the corner and make it a make or miss type game for him. Instead, just keep him involved, let him push the ball, let him get out in transition. We telling him to crash the boards a lot more from the corners because he can create second chance opportunities for us, which he's done a great job. And he's really been great the last couple months for us, and we expect him to continue to do it.
Finch had an interesting comment the other day saying that he has gone out of his way to call some Jaden plays a little bit more often earlier in games because as your injured players come back, he does not want him to drift back into becoming, quote unquote, the fifth option, which I thought made some sense too. It's a way to keep a player interested, to sort of reinforce the point that given, in a given game, depending on matchups and so forth, he can be more than just a fifth option.
Yeah, exactly. You want to keep his momentum going forward. You want to keep his confidence at an all-time high. He's a guy that we're going to need to advance to where we want to advance to be, more than the defensive guy and the 3-and-D guy. He has to be, a scorer. He has to be a crasher. He has to be a mid-range menace, making all his plays in the mid-range and getting to the free throw line. He just creates another dynamic for our team, and we want to continue to involve him as much as we can. So when we run plays, even if it's a play for Ant and Jaden is the second option on that play, Ant gets a lot of attention, we'll happily throw it to Jaden and let Jaden create. So we're just hopeful that it continues to keep building this momentum for him and keep him involved in the games.
Anthony talked a lot after the game about basically trying to read coverages better. And you'll recall earlier in the season, he expressed a lot of very vocal frustration about double teams, about dealing with double teams. Finch talked about it after the game, too, that he's just learning better what a defense is doing in a given situation. I think the quote was, he's now accepting it, making the right plays. He might have fought some coverages before. What do you see in his evolving there? And I assume it all fits together, right? If you've got other people flowing better, and even in some cases, the ball not in his hands all the time. Maybe it is in Randall's hands as well. What's the key to him being as frustrated with the double team that every great scorer obviously has to deal with?
I think it's first just the realization that, one, when you're one of the best players in the league, you're going to get that attention, and the way to get that attention off of you is to trust the team, trust the guys that are around you, and allow other guys to make plays off of that. And if he's comfortable with understanding, I'm going to draw two people and we're going to score every time, and be cool with that, then we can do exactly what we set out to do on a nightly basis. And as a young guy, it's hard to think that way because in his mind, he's trying to score 60 points a night, and he's trying to do impact the game in that manner every night. And he's at the level now where that's not going to be the impact that he has every night. It might be the nights where I think it was a couple nights ago, maybe it's the Spurs or whoever, he had like 25 points on 15 shot attempts or 14 shot attempts. And I was telling him how important that game was for him to look at, because that's the efficiency he can have. And look at the numbers around him. Everybody else is in double figures, and we're really, really tough to guard when we got that kind of parity around our team, and we're not solely, wearing you out and having to, have you defeat 2 and 3 guys every time you want to score. Rely on Julius, rely on Jaden, Nas, Dante, myself, whoever else can create offense for our team off of your, initial actions.
Basketball, I don't have to tell you, is such a rhythm game from a team standpoint in terms of when you're struggling as a team and then when it's going good. It certainly feels like you guys have picked up the vibe. I don't want to compare it to last season because they're different seasons. There's different personnel, and there's a long way from here to there, obviously. But can you speak to that? I mean, how much comfort and satisfaction you see because I feel like it's the first time this year. You obviously never were a bad team this year, but it was meandering. It was up, it was down, it was middle. This is the first time I feel like there's a vibe back with you guys. I want to call it a swagger in a positive way, where you guys are saying, well, no, we can be a factor here. We can put this thing together and be a factor. Does it feel like that on the court right now? Do you have that vibe?
I think we do. I think swagger is a good word. And I think it's come from, it took a little while. I think it took some time for us all to kind of gel. We've had guys in and out of lineup, haven't been able to truthfully get our team in rotation guys just in a comfort zone as far as how much you're going to play or who you're playing with, and just getting used to those lineups. And I think now we've kind of hit the perfect chord where everybody who comes in the game is confident in their role and what they're going to accomplish when they get on the court, however many minutes they get. And when you have that kind of feeling going into the games, man, I know I don't average 20, but I feel like when I come to the game, man, I'm about to score 20 tonight. Because it's just, I feel so good. I know that Dante feels that way. I know Julius, I know everybody just feels so good about their individual positions that you have that kind of confidence, on a nightly basis. So we're just going to try to continue to keep that going and building, and understand that we can be that team that we set out to be in the beginning of the year.
I would assume, too, I think the home crowds, they've kind of been waiting for this, right? I think there's been a little unsettled nature to the crowd just because of what they remember last year and how much how much they enjoyed the run they had last season, and it wasn't quite coming together. Now, I'm assuming as a player, you guys look to that and like that idea. You come back home and maybe you can show the home crowd a little bit that they don't need to be quite as uneasy, or you show what you guys seem to be putting together.
Well, yeah, we want our fan support, one way or another, and we know it comes with the work we put on the court. So, we're trying to earn that as we go. And, each year is different, obviously, and each team is different. But I think this year we're working towards that, trying to get the same excitement and buzz that we had in the previous year. And especially this time of year when we're going into the playoffs and where everything matters more. So, we definitely need that, and looking forward to continue to build it.
One last item, and this struck me again last night. I know they were missing one of their main players, but just in general, with the players you guys can continue to bring out during the course of a game compared to even Denver, to me, that's one of your strengths, man. You guys you can come at waves at opponents. You've got some significant depth. You could say to a certain extent, You've nurtured it because the injured players almost forced Finchy to play other people. But I know the playoffs are supposedly about, everybody's bench gets shorter and depth doesn't matter as much. I still feel like if it's used the right way, it can be a great strength for you guys even in the postseason. What do you think?
I really do. I think it could be, the thing that kind of gets us over is we won't have to rely on 5, 6, 7 guys. We have 10, 11, even 12 guys that are capable of playing at a high level in the playoffs. And we're going to need all those guys to have big games for us. And one night it might be somebody else, the next night it might be another guy. And it's our mental and our mindset on how we handle that. And I think we've handled it great coming down the stretch of this year, and that could be a definite positive for us heading into the playoffs. And when we're going against matchups where teams game by game will make adjustments and put bigger guys in lineups, or try to play smaller or play faster, and we can match up to that with multiple different guys and units that we can throw out there.
Appreciate the time, good work, and we'll chat soon. Thanks, Mike.
All right, appreciate you.
Mike Conley, brought to you by Dynamic Drips, kind enough to join us to start this program. It's called Bumper to Bumper. I am the host. My name's Dan Barreiro. Guardsy is the producer of the program. I'm going to try to get a quick break in here now, maybe a shorty, because we got another guest coming up at about 3:30 or 3:35. It's a guest-intensive show. All of them, I think, worthy of our time or your time. Busy guest lineup will include Robert Smith at 5:30. Russo Radio is scheduled for 4:30 tonight. Well, Sean Salisbury next segment. There will be a very special Ode to a Dead Guy segment. Many of you know by now the sad news has broken that John Feinstein, world-class reporter and writer, has passed away at the age of 68 years old. A horrific story, and not surprising given this is the nature of Feinstein. He filed a column last night on Tom Izzo that is appearing right now online, Washington Post. In today's edition of the Washington Post, Guardsy has found some sound that we will play on one of Feinstein's visits. In this case, a visit where he came in studio a while back. That will be part of our discussion with him. Obviously, Golden Gopher men's basketball, major breaking news overnight that indeed Ben Johnson has been dismissed, and the clock has already started on who the replacement indeed might be. So I'm sure we'll get into that in a little bit more detail later. It's also worth noting, Guardsy, there's two Vikings updates to get to, neither of them involving
Aaron
Rodgers. The first is that according to a couple of media outlets, the Vikings are trading, have already traded former starting guard Ed Ingram to the Houston Texans. What did we get? Was it a 6?
I thought I saw a 6.
I thought we saw a 6 there. Yeah. Now Ingram, remember, was a second-round pick in 2022. We get him for 2026, 6th-round choice. According to another, this is a Schefter report, the Vikings are planning to release Garrett Bradbury, the center they've now replaced via free agency. Remember, he was a 2019 first-round pick.
Right.
Now, there's some hope. They're still trying to make a deal, to make a trade. That would obviously be the Vikings' first choice, but he will be released if they are unable to do that. Vikings adding Colts Pro Bowl center Ryan Kelly, who, by the way, is so well-liked. Did you see what the owner of the Colts sent out a release?
Put out a nice statement. A
beautiful statement thanking him for his role in not just the team with the team, but in the community as well. So Ryan Kelly is in, and we knew already Bradbury's out, but there's going to be no effort. Some people had wondered, well, might we try to use Bradbury at guard? Apparently, the Bradbury run in Minnesota is indeed over as well.
It feels like 2 months ago also because of all the news that has happened today, but Hitman announced he was coming back.
Very good point.
Last night,
reminded me. That's right. That was last night. It was last night.
Hitman's coming back. Harrison Smith.
And I have to say, I'm not surprised on the basis of all the other moves that have been made. Maybe that's another tip-off that he knows something about A-Rod coming.
Oh, boy.
Well, I had to say it. Nothing new there.
Russell Wilson, though, tweeted about Harrison Smith, so maybe he's sucking up to him.
Is that right?
Yeah, said one of the greats, number 22. Yep.
And I think Wilson just left Cleveland without a deal because he went there to visit. Schefter's the one guy's getting very annoyed with all the Rodgers to Vikings steam. He's not buying it. He says, I haven't gotten any indication there's anything to it. I'm not going to give it any oxygen until I think there's a reason to believe something is happening there. Others have, as we know, including our own guy, Kevin Seifert, kept the door a little bit more open. Bottom line is we have no resolution on that issue, but still several Vikings items to get to, and the Harrison Smith one is a big one as well. You're right. Back for, is it 14? Year 14?
Yes, year 14.
How many 14-year safeties have there been in the National Football League?
Not a ton.
I wouldn't think a bunch, right? but he's got all these new weapons in front of him. The defensive line's going to be like a steel curtain. He'll be able to mail it in at safety, right? Just walk around a little bit and occasionally make a tackle.
Cam Bynum used to tell you about that.
That's true.
He felt bored from time to time.
From time to time, he did. All right, let's get back on schedule, and let's find out what Sean Salisbury thinks about all this Aaron Rodgers nonsense and his own reaction to the other moves we know the Vikings have already made in free agency. Bonus Salisbury when we come back. It's kind of a Vikings alumni day here on The Fan. Robert Smith's going to join us at 5:30. Sean Salisbury, kind enough to give us some extra time this week. Now joined us via the Connecticut Water Systems hotline as well. Mr. Salisbury, how have you been?
I'm doing fantastic, and I appreciate you having me on. And what's crazy is that, well, we're both coming on your show today, and you know my affinity for Robert. He's such a great friend and great human being. Hell, I can get to his house by the time, well, if we did 2 segments, like a half hour long, I'd be in his living, because he's like, I think he's still out in the Woodlands or in Spring. So him and I are not far from each other in Texas.
That's a good point.
Best people, yeah.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
I'll send him a message. Please tell him I said hello, or tell him I'm thinking about him. I love the guy.
100%. Tell us a little bit about your new enterprise, online enterprise. What's that all about?
You know, it's on Rumble, but Unpaved is the name of the show. And the reason why is that we're going to go places that, you know, I assure you. And there may be places people say, where the hell are they going? I'm not real sure, but Unpaved fits, and it's good for merch. But it is, you know, the name just hit me one day. I said, you know what? That's kind of been my life. It's Unpaved.
Yeah,
it doesn't mean, and most of my growth has been on the road where you're like, oh, damn, I'm headed down this road. So that's it. And I'd actually been talking to these guys for, you know, I'm still doing my local morning drive show, but I've been talking to them for about 3 years. And actually, Dan Bongino had introduced us, and Dan's a great guy. And, you know, this has nothing to do politically, right? Dan's just a great human being. And he had introduced me 3 years ago, and they wanted to do a show then, but I wasn't ready, Dan. And, you know, moving around, and I was doing my local show, and it just wasn't time. Not only financially, it just wasn't right at the time. And now, for about the last 9 months, we've been putting it together, and we're on week 2, and we've had phenomenal success so far. And it's just a fun audio video podcast. We're having a great time doing it. Plus, you know how it is, Dan, in Minnesota. You do your local stuff, and it's focused on local, which is awesome. But also, you know, because the national stuff was part of my life for a long time, and I miss jumping into hockey, being able to cover it all, right?
Sure.
And we get to go all. So I'm grateful to Dan Bongino, grateful to Rumble, but grateful that I get to do this. And I'm excited because there's the money to be made, but I'm excited because it allows me to expand some of the things. And not just sports. It allows me to kind of jump into some other things. So appreciate you asking, though. It's Unpaid every day. Starting on Monday, we're going to switch, Dan. We're going to start at 1 Eastern.
1 Eastern. Okay, so noon Central.
Noon, yeah, so it won't disrupt anything you and I
Thank
do
God.
next year.
Oh, that's even better.
And I'll be honest with you. When we were talking about it, I did have you guys in mind because we've been on the first 2 weeks at 3 Eastern.
That's what I thought,
So we'll do tomorrow, and then we're switching. And it's just better timing. I'll get off my morning drive show. I'll get 2 hours to prepare and hit the ground running here. And then it'll free up in the afternoon. So I'm looking forward to it.
Outstanding. Good luck with that enterprise. I'm sure that'll turn out very, very well for you. And I'm glad you're getting a chance, like I said, to branch out a little bit. A lot of ground to cover on the Vikings. I want to start with what the acquisitions they have made, because what strikes me is I've clamored, you and I have talked about this for a while, but what I've clamored for is paying more attention, devoting more resources to the line of scrimmage. And that's really where it starts for me that I loved about these free agency moves. 2 interior defensive linemen, 2 interior offensive linemen, and some pretty good names with some pretty good reputations. Some of them have injury issues, which we'll get to in a minute. But how did it strike you? If we just talk about, leave aside the other stuff, just the line of scrimmage stuff, to me, that no team that wants to go anywhere, I think, can devote too many resources to that part of the game.
Well, Dan, why aside from some really big playmaker, you know, you get Hargrave and Allen on the defensive front to start there, and Fries is a hell of a player. We'll get to the names, but think about Kansas City's 2 Super Bowl losses. They were dominated at the line of scrimmage.
Yeah.
And I'm just using them because they're the most recent game. And good quarterback play and domination at the line of scrimmage. You'll be in every game. Dan, with this March Madness coming up, you watch hockey. You're a big hockey fan, and so am I. What do the champions or the people that win consistently have in common? Well, if you have Connor McDavid, you got a chance, players like that. But they hit you. They're physical. And in college basketball, the well coached and physicality, and you got to go on and you got to defend them. Defense, like Kelvin Sampson's here, right? And the one thing about their University of Houston team, regardless if they're shooting well, and that may cost you in the Final Four if you don't knock down shots in a bigger building, right? But they are always it's travels. Defense in March Madness is going to travel. You're going to have that's why Tom Izzo's teams, they're physical, they're going to travel. And look, they're always hanging around. They may not win it, travels. Defense in football. And what else? A great point guard in college basketball, the guard play and playing defense. You will be in every game. Can you knock down clutch shots and hit free throws? Bam. In football, great quarterback, that helps. Or playing great in those big games. And then controlling the line of scrimmage on both sides. Keeping your quarterback upright, moving the line of scrimmage, getting some push with a good physical runner and a guy who's got some wiggle, and controlling the defensive line of scrimmage. I don't know many teams, and I've thought about it. How many teams, and in hockey, if they're knocking you around and you get great goal, it's defense and great goaltending, you got a chance when he's standing on his head to go win a Stanley Cup. So I listen, you can give me great perimeter people. Great perimeter people. I don't care who it is or when it is. Minnesota Vikings know about that. We've had great perimeter people for a long, and even at the time we had great offensive line, just unfortunately came up short a few times. But when you could you could bring Jamar Chase, you can keep Jefferson, add Chris Carter, come back in his prime, and Randy Moss, and give me and Warren Moon. And you know what? If you can't protect the passer and you can't get stops, you're not going to win a champ. You'll get to the playoffs and look pretty doing it. You're just not going to win so physical teams win, and they always travel well, meaning they can go deep, and then it just comes down to 3 or 4, 6, 8 plays. So I love what they did defensively. I love Ryan Kelly. I've loved him since he came out of school. Fries is a hell of an interior guy. Hell, I was pining for him here in Houston for Raiders first, but pining for him in Houston where I am because they need to shore up the interior, and obviously Minnesota and Houston keep doing deals together. But yeah, those 4 gets that you're talking about are exactly why, Dan, even when we get to the quarterback talk here, you will travel well, and it's good for a rookie quarterback, if he is going to be the guy, to know that they shored it up and they got some good help on defense. I love, and especially in the interior, quarterbacks don't like people at their legs.
That's it.
And this is huge for them.
Yeah, interior pressure, which this team has really not had for a long period of time. So I guess the one factor that's been brought up by a few people is the ages of, well, Fries is still young. I think he's 27. But the ages in a couple cases, you're hitting 30 and even a little older than 30. And philosophically, that's been something this regime, I think, has tried to stay away from, the idea of free agency at that age. Does that concern you at all, or do you think these guys are still good enough or are enough of an upgrade over what you had before that you can't get too lost in necessarily those ages being a little bit past, maybe the prime age you're looking for when you make signings like this?
Yeah, Dan, I think that we're probably premature saying, well, man, they got a 31-year-old. I know a lot of 31-year-olds that have kicked my ass plenty of times, right? So it's amazing we're talking about this, but I get if you're saying, oh, man, it's like when we offer a baseball player, man, a guy wants a 12-year, $600 million. I'm not really worried about him 9 years in, okay? I know on the back end that it's like, man, why would you do that? But I'm thinking here, like short to midterm. The Vikings are in a win now. They had a chance to go some special places, and they did some special things last year. So, and when people say, what about the cap in 2029? The cap will change. Players change, restructure players' contracts. I promise you, like in baseball, well, why are we bringing this guy? Why are you doing this? Talk to me in 20. We'll deal with that later, because you can always move things around and piece around if you got good front office. So I'm not worried about 8 years from now. I'm not. And I'm not worried about the Vikings 5 years from now. I'm worried about, can we win now? And even in the next, let's even say a 3-year plan. Well, let me ask you this. If they win a Super Bowl in the next 3 years, is it worth it? I wonder if the guy at 35 isn't going to be as good as he was at 31. Well, get in line. That's usually the way it works. So I'm a guy that I want to win now. And not that you're mortgaging now. If you even won this year and went to hell in a handbasket the next 3, was it worth it? I think so. I like it. And every team, Seattle, remember when they were dominating? What happens eventually? You get salary cap strapped. It just happens. I mean, people go and they want to write a book and be a free agent, go get paid. I get it. So go win. Would you rather have, hey, man, we're going to look good in 2030, but the next 9 years we're going to suck, whatever it is, the next 5 years. So I'm big on now. So I don't look at it and say, yeah, a guy gets banged up and here. It's like a running back. The second he rushes for 70 yards in a game and he's over 30, we think he's not any good. How'd that look for Derrick Henry this year? So I'm not. Depth matters. Having extra bodies to move around, rotation bodies. So while some may be a little older, usually if you put a letter grade by these guys, I think Allen's still an A guy.
Yep.
Murphy in the backfield, keeping guys too, and Aaron Jones that you kept. It's not just who you bring in; it's some of the core of your team you need to keep too. So I'm not real worried about it. Well, Sean, then you're short-sighted. Yeah, I actually am. I'm pretty short-sighted when it comes to why am I worried about 4 years from now if I got good front office and we can move people around. Team's been doing it forever. I'm not too worried about what may come. I'm worried about what I actually can see in my distance, and I see some pretty damn good things from the Vikings. And the quarterback position, which I know we're going to get to, I'm not overly worried about it. We committed a lot of money in the back end, and this guy got this. That's the nature of the game, and that's where we are with salaries now. And that's just going to happen. You've got to overpay at times to get a guy. I don't think that the Vikings are thinking a 31-year-old's going to help them 6 years from now.
No,
I don't.
No.
I don't. And you know what? 2 years from now, they may be able to move him for an asset. I mean, it happens all the time. So I'll deal with those cards later. I'm looking at how am I going to be in 2025 and 2026, and are they aging themselves out? The answer for this crop is absolutely not.
Yeah, and most of these contracts, after a couple of years anyway, it becomes immaterial if you have to move them around. Exactly it. 100% true. Yep. I couldn't agree with you more. I think these are very good, very promising moves. I mean, they got to play, and a couple of them are coming off of injuries, but not the kind of injuries that should get in the way of their recovery. You mentioned quarterback. Man, we've spent a lot more time with this than I ever thought that we would, much to the chagrin of a lot of people who text us want no part of any flirtation with Aaron Rodgers for a bunch of different reasons. And I don't know what to make of the story, Sean. The reporters who cover this team every day, who I trust, say, look, it's still unlikely he ends up here, but I can't say it's impossible because they are talking. Their information is there are conversations going on here. So I'll ask you, do you think they are talking, mulling this over? And more importantly, do you think the Vikings should be interested in this grand experiment as it would be?
Dan, if I'm Aaron Rodgers, I'm begging him to talk to me. If I'm the Vikings, he's the one that's got to come talk to us. I don't think I'm hunting him down to stand in line. Let me start there.
Right.
And I think you feel the same way. Let's sticking to the field, how good the guy's been in his career. 4 MVPs. At 41, Aaron Rodgers was, if you said, give me the top 10 quarterbacks from last year or going into this year, I wouldn't put him in there. But the guy's been fantastic and had a great career. Injuries and age starts to settle back, but I'm going to get to the next point about him that's nothing to do with physically, and we'll get there in just a second. But listen, if I was Aaron Rodgers, I would love it. He ain't going to San Francisco because Brock Purdy's going to get more money than Tua. He's going to get $55 million. Pittsburgh's logical because that quarterback room is empty. He's going to a city that, if he goes there, loves football. They're a playoff team. Mike Tomlin's a beast as a coach. Their defense, talk about traveling, they know how to play. And they went and got DK Metcalf. They're pretty good at the perimeter. So you think, well, that's logical. But, of course, Aaron's going to hold off. And if he knows where he's going, he's going to play it slow and tell us on Pat McAfee show. He's toying. He's a scorekeeper. He loves to toy with people. Yeah. That part bothers some. And if I was a team that wanted him and I'm hinging on it and it's going to affect my draft, it would bother me too. I'm with most fans, Dan, and this probably comes as a shock because I thought when he went to the Jets, before he blew out his Achilles, that they had a legitimate chance to be really good. And then after the injury, come back this year, I thought they would win the division. Well, Buffalo had something to say about it, and he played better at the end of the year, but they didn't play well, and they got weapons. So I think Aaron Rodgers' best football is behind him. Do I think on a loaded roster like Minnesota they can win? I absolutely do. If you ask me, would I think that Aaron Rodgers would have a better year than Sam Darnold did last year, I'm going to tell you no. Mm-hmm. Maybe the last 2 games, sans the last 2 games. I'm with the majority now. And he knows the division. I get it. My problem is not that if Aaron Rodgers can throw a slant to Jefferson and get him the football. Of course he can. Is he all in? Is it part game for him? Where's his passion? Mm-hmm. To me, it's from the neck up. Is his head all in? Is he thinking about golf? Is he going to toy with it? All those things that people talk about. He's a good player. I don't think he's great anymore. A first ballot Hall of Famer. If some people may have him on their Mount Rushmore list or what have you. But at this stage, maybe he still has a bone to pick and wants to prove something. But the physical, even now, will never be the Rodgers you saw in Green Bay. We're past that. The Achilles, all those things. Are we past him putting up 4,000 yards? No, we're not. And can you win with him? You damn right you can. But if Aaron Rodgers picked a bad team, they'd only get a couple games better. And you saw it in New York.
Right.
They were not much of a threat. So in Minnesota, loaded, great offseason, A-plus offseason so far. I think, hell, if that was the case, I would have stuck with Darnold and let those two compete. I really would have. Mm-hmm. At this stage, and I understand why Sam left. If you say McCarthy or Rodgers, you got to stick with one or the other. At this stage, I'm going all in and saying, let's grow with the rookie.
With the kid.
He's a rookie. Yeah, he's not a rookie, but he's in essence because he hasn't played. So I would, but I would have loved to have the security blanket. Dan, you know how I feel about the depth of the position. I was the other guy plenty of times in my career, just a security blanket that if somebody got hurt, you can come in and win a game or two. And I think those guys are important. But Sam's better than that, and Sam wanted to go be a guy, and I get it. And we talked about it all year last year. So I think I would, but I am still a little concerned, even though they're showing up the roster, because I think McCarthy's going to be a really, really, really damn good player. But right now, coming off an injury, having not seen it, even people say, well, he played at Michigan. I get all that. This is different. This is the Sundays are different than Saturdays, I promise you. Now, if you told me I'm getting Jaden Daniels as a J.J. McCarthy, well, hell yes. But those guys, that's not the norm. That's the outlier.
It is. You're right.
Who is McCarthy going to be? He's accurate. He's going. I think he can actually be a better pro because he's going to learn to throw more because Jim, physical, run it, protect it, play action, throw 24 times. Let's get out of the building and go home. Kevin will put him in position. He's going to have to throw 40 times. But I think you're going to see even more potential from him. So it's Rodgers or him or Russ Wilson or McCarthy or Jameis Winston or McCarthy. It starts with Aaron. Give me McCarthy all day, 6 days a week and twice on Sunday right now. I'm not saying it's a weakness, but the inexperience on a really good team will help him because he's got a good team. But he'll go through those games where you say, damn, I wish Sam was here. But I think that he can dispel that pretty quickly. I would not pay Aaron Rodgers a lot of money. Plus, you're going to deal with the sideshow.
Yeah,
you're going to deal with him having, that sometimes he's irritable, and you just don't know what the brooder's going to bring to the table. Hell of a player. I got no issue with him off the field. He beats to a different drum, but who the hell does? I don't care about that. I've played with plenty of players like that, but I don't think you're going to go 10 times deeper with Aaron Rodgers than you are with J.J. McCarthy at this stage of his career.
Well, you hit on obviously the off the field stuff, the corrosive nature. Yep. The vibe, right, at this point with Rodgers.
And it's not always a good vibe. That outweighs the what's going on vibe outweighs the good vibe right now in most people's eyes.
I think what we get back to is if the player is dominant enough, you know this as well as anybody, organizations will hold their nose. They may not like that aspect of this, but he's so damn good. We just have to deal with it. But the question is he good enough at this point to say, yeah, we'll hold our noses? I think that's a very fair point, a very fair part of the conversation. I mean, another name that's come up, I have no idea where he's going to end up. Maybe he's landed. I don't even know about it. It'd be obviously a lot less controversial, but would give you a little bit of, I think, cushion. What about Flacco? What do you about Joe Flacco? Or do you think he's? Yeah.
Yes. Now, I don't want Joe to start every day.
No, definitely not.
But you tell me if you're telling me Joe's going to pop off his couch and he's been playing pop off. Hell, they should have kept him in Cleveland. He's better than Watson is right now, and he would have kept him going. And he's been through it. What you get from him is no ego, a guy that you don't need a lot of reps with. That he can go in and do just what we just talked about. Win some games for you when you may need him if something happens. Yes, and he's not going to disrupt the quarterback room. He's not. There's not going to be the brooding that goes on. I think Joe's like, hell yeah, I'll be ready to play. I know it. I put it this way. Joe's ego is not going to get in the way of playing football, and I believe he would like to mentor McCarthy. I think it'd be great. So for and it's not going to cost much. It's not a high risk. And when Joe's going good, the Julio Franco type, right? When he played at 50, yes. Get the bat through the zone. Joe can still spin it. You just probably don't want it for long term, but I have zero issue with bringing him in. Listen, Aaron Rodgers, like you said, the stuff that goes on and what he'd bring to a locker room. Like I said, he'll do some good things, but it's just, I don't know. I don't want to walk on eggshells when I walk into the building.
Yeah.
And I think that a lot of that would be happening. And I sure don't want it to be I confess it's somebody else's fault. With Joe, you're not going to get it. And who the hell knows from day to day what Aaron's going to do? God bless him if you're in that position. But you are right. My number one saying, I say it, whether it's a guy who's had character issues, and I'm speaking as if you're an NFL front office guy, how they go about their business. If the headache is bigger than the performance and the talent, I can't do it. If the talent is bigger than the headache and the production's bigger than the headache, I'll live with it because it helps me win. And that's what you're going through. Give me Flacco, and it'll be a move that not very many people talk about. But for JJ and the offense and Kevin McCarthy's comfort zone, they're going to bring somebody in, and Daniel Jones would have been a good one, but I get why he's going to compete. So, yeah, that's a phenomenal point. Joe Flacco will throw a football for some team this year. I firmly believe that.
Yeah, I think you bring him in here more he understands he's the backup in effect, and then you may play him some, and I guess you don't have to worry about him going viral on McAfee's show. I think that's probably true too.
Yeah, and making sure that hey, I can't say anything. Wait. I'm going to wait till next Tuesday on McAfee's show. So yeah, Flacco go on there to say, hey man, what's happening? I'm sitting on my couch and I'm going to throw 30 times. So, yeah. Oh yeah. You'll deal with it every week, whether you like it or not. That's just the way it's going to be.
Well, I will be honest. I will tell you, and I don't know if this is just the old newspaper man in me or what. I have been rooting for the story because I think Rodgers being in here would be like one of the biggest stories in history. But I've said from the beginning, there's a stupendous gamble that would go along with it. And what you'd be banking on, I think, is maybe what you can't, your eyes didn't even believe. And that would be, okay, he was not very good last season. The situation around him maybe wasn't very stable either. He's going to be humbled. Well, no, not humbled. That's the wrong word with A-Raj. He's going to be annoyed by, he doesn't want that to be his legacy. And he vows that, all right, I'm not going to end that way. And somehow he summons up more of what we associate with the Rodgers magic. And he gives you that kind of season. But
it's possible, Dan. It does exist because he's a good player and he does keep score. That is possible.
But it's dangerous. Right. It is very dangerous. Yeah.
And you make a great point. The media guy and me, and I know the great writer that you are, it's like, oh, give me some popcorn. Of course, for the story value.
How much fun would that be? Yeah.
Oh, I have 5 days, 7 days a week. Yes. Even when I'm not working, I'm following. I'm like, yeah, what's he going to say today? And then you're hoping you get production because you want that. But the sane side of me, which doesn't rear its head very often, says no. you just can't do it. But I get it and I understand it. But it'd be riveting. And you're right. And then the legacy of so he went here and then he went to the Jets and now he's in Minnesota. There's a guy who wore number 4 and that comes into play too. And speaking of media, real quick, and I know if you have other questions, to our friend. I admired him as a writer. We lost John Feinstein today, and I'm heartbroken because I'm a huge fan. It sucked. A tremendous author, he's covered sports forever and life forever. And I'm sure, Dan, I don't know your feelings, but my gut tells me you were a fan of his too. So rest in peace to one of the good ones in sports.
Sean, not only a fan, we had over the last 20 years, we've had him on dozens of times. He's been a great guest. Almost every book he's ever written. It's a devastating, absolutely. And the most underrated thing about him, I think, obviously he wrote about big names, but you know what I think was his strength? He wrote about little names too. He'd write the last season of the Patriot League. He would find, when it comes to especially college sports, smaller stories and make them something. And because he'd been so successful, the publishers would allow him to do that. And I think that is
he took the little guy and made him big, Dan.
Yes.
He turned a non-story into a story that none of us would have ever seen on the back page into a book or a front page story, and to the point where you just couldn't put the article or the book down.
That's it.
You're 100% correct. Brilliant, and he's going to be missed. And I'm one of those guys, the older I get, it still feels like it's way too young.
68 years old, Sean. Way ridiculous. Young, absolutely too young. I'm glad you brought him up. Thanks for the bonus time this week. Good luck on the new venture, and we will stay in touch as always. Thanks, Sean.
No problem. You have no problem reaching out to me, brother. I'm here for you anytime.
I appreciate that. That is Sean Salisbury helping us out on a very busy day for this show because we've had a lot of good guests, and we'll have several more before we're done. Russo Radio at the bottom of the hour. Robert Smith at 5:30. We will digest a couple things that Shawnee had to say regarding his views on Aaron Rodgers coming here, and get to a couple of other things. And there will be an ode. Yes, there will be an ode to John Feinstein. Stay tuned.
PayPal lets you pay all your pals, like your graduation gifters. Who's paying for the mattress topper?
You mean the beanbag chair?
Aren't we getting a mini fridge?
Can we create a pool on PayPal? It lets us collect the money before we buy.
Ooh, yes, that's smart.
Glad we can agree on something.
Easily pool, split, and send money with PayPal. Get started in the PayPal app. A PayPal account is required to send and receive money. A balance account is required to create a pool.
Optimize your nutrition with Factor, America's #1 ready-to-eat meal service. Factor's fresh, never-frozen meals are dietitian approved and ready to eat in just 2 minutes. Choose from 40 weekly options across 8 dietary preferences like Calorie Smart and Protein Plus. Factor's keto meals can help you lose up to 8 pounds in 8 weeks. Get started at factormeals.com/factor50off to get 50% off plus free shipping on your first box. Weight loss with Factor Keto based on a randomized controlled clinical trial. Results will vary depending on diet and exercise.